Remember the show Doomsday Preppers? Well, it's more than a decade old at this point, so we're going to check back in with it and see how well it's aged and if there's anything we can learn from it. Let's get after it. I'm James Merritt, emergency manager and career soldier, and this is Readiness Nation. So this is the kind of video I was planning on putting on the companion channel, Readiness Nation Reacts, but until I build enough of an audience on the main channel, everything's going to be here. So today we're beginning our comprehensive review of the TV series Doomsday Preppers with segment 1 of episode 1 of season 1 titled Bullets, Lots of Bullets. Link to the full episode in the description. If you're not familiar with the series, it first aired in 2011 and was a reality TV show. It had several different real-life preppers show their plans and equipment to the viewing audience. We're gonna slide right past what an egregious operational security violation that is and just dive right in.
Paul Range is retired from his corporate job and lives with his wife Gloria outside of Floresville, Texas. They enjoy eating barbecue with friends, relaxing on their back porch, and preparing for the end of the world as we know it.
Let's go, we're bugging out. I'm a prepper because I'm preparing for when it hits the fan.
What we've got here is about 50,000 pounds and it'll last 2 people for 20 years.
Paul and Gloria consider prepping for the apocalypse a full-time job. They dedicate 50 hours a week to storing food, building up defenses, and designing gadgets, all to improve their chance of survival after the end of days.
It's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle.
It's just in me. I don't know how to live any different.
One of the things I keep reiterating is that your contingency plan is not your way of life. It's an insurance policy. If it's taken over your whole life, you're doing it wrong. You can and should do all of this stuff without becoming a weirdo. One of the major reasons normies think preppers are crazy and more people don't take emergency preparedness seriously and don't consider getting involved themselves is that there are people like this trying to convince you that you have to live a strange and obsessive lifestyle to have and maintain the necessary level of readiness. Now, if these people or anyone else in this series wants to live the way that they do, this is America. As long as you aren't breaking the law or hurting anybody, you're free to live your life your way. But don't tell people they need to live like you to be ready for an emergency.
Let's get going.
This Sunday is no different. A normal retiree activity, like playing golf, is not on the agenda. Instead, they are testing the strength of their home against incoming gunfire.
I don't need mine as big because I hit better.
That's bad.
By shooting live rounds at the walls.
This test is necessary to find out how effective the house is against small arms fire.
With the town of San Antonio only 35 miles away, they fear that the end of the world will bring desperate and armed civilians to their doorstep.
People will show up and want food, and you cannot feed the entire world. So we want a full 100 yards, and that's going to be right out here.
To simulate civilian fire, they are testing the .22 caliber rifle, one of the most common guns in America.
Okay, weapons hot. Commence firing. Dead on. It went through it. I heard it. And that 3/8 steel.
The result of this test, whether a bullet will go through the wall or not, could mean the difference between life and death for those inside a house under siege.
Hopefully we won't have new holes in the house.
Yeah, we got one round here, one round here, one round here, one round here. Just a slight dent.
The test is a success.
Okay.
Some people would think that this was not normal behavior, but it gives a whole lot of peace of mind that rounds are not going to be going completely through.
So if you're not familiar with guns, they're shooting rifles chambered in .22 long rifle, which is empirically one of the weakest cartridges in common use today. And if you're not familiar with Conex boxes, shipping containers, they're strongest along the edges where the load-bearing frame is. This test proves absolutely nothing. What you'd actually want to do if you want to see if your walls will stop bullets is shoot the actual wall metal and do so with 5.56 NATO, 7.62 by 39, and 9mm NATO, which are the rounds that ARs, AKs, and the most common handguns shoot, respectively. I found some Canadians who did just that, but swapping out 7.62 by 39 for 12 gauge. But the short answer is no, shipping containers are mostly not bulletproof. In most instances, they provide less protection than a brick-walled house. Link to their video in the description.
I haven't been called crazy to my face except for a couple of my kids. You know, that doesn't worry me. I mean, this is the lifestyle that we live. And if people don't like it, they don't have to come on the property.
All of Paul and Gloria's preps are in readiness for one extreme worldwide event, a complete magnetic polar shift.
We are seeing an increase of earthquakes that I think are probably associated with some earth changes.
Scientists agree that the Earth's north and south magnetic poles are constantly moving location by up to 25 miles a year. And every 300,000 years or so, prehistory has shown that they will actually switch completely. The last polar shift occurred 780,000 years ago, leading some people to believe we're overdue for a global flip-flop that could have devastating consequences.
The worst case would be a massive earthquake type thing where the continents did a fast shift. Most all the buildings would fall down and collapse.
Paul believes that a polar shift will also cause the continent's land masses to shift north and south along the Earth's mantle, potentially moving Antarctica towards the equator and Texas towards Canada.
The earthquakes have been stepping up lately, and by next year, I'm thinking the rattling will continue and intensify. Everybody should be prepared.
So I'm going to preface this by saying that none of my credentials are in the earth sciences. And I'm going to way oversimplify this because you didn't click on this video for a science lecture. But what they're saying here isn't how any of this works. The first problem with all of this, and I fault Nat Geo for this first one, is that they're conflating a shifting of the axis of the Earth with an inversion of the magnetic polarity of the Earth. North and south flipping is an inversion of magnetic polarity, not a shifting of the Earth's axis. This is a phenomena that does happen every 300,000 years, but it has to do with the magnetic field of the Earth and nothing to do with its axis. As the positive and negative dipoles of the Earth invert, it collapses down the electromagnetic field of the Earth. This will make us especially vulnerable to space weather like solar flares while the Earth's EM field is in its weakened state. But this has absolutely nothing to do with the rotational axis of the Earth, continental drift, or where the equator is located relative to the continents. Magnetic north is shifting at a rate of 30 miles per year from a point in Canada to a point in Siberia. But this really isn't reason for concern about seismic activity, as evidenced by the fact that we haven't seen outsized seismic activity in the 14 years since this episode aired. The movement is too small and too slow to cause the stuff like they're talking about in the show. However, it is important to know that a decade plus into the apocalypse, the declination angle on all of your maps will be off enough to screw with your ability to conduct land navigation. Furthermore, none of this has anything to do with the continents moving. That's a phenomenon called continental drift, which only happens at a rate of 1 inch per year. The shifting of magnetic north has to do with the movement of molten ferrous masses inside the Earth. But if that did cause the shifting of continents relative to the rotational axis of the Earth, it would move Texas closer to the equator, not further from it. So they actually need to be worrying about more tropical conditions, not more Arctic conditions. If you're interested in the actual science of how all of this works, I found actual scientists to explain it all. Links in the description.
A typical house would be no match against the devastation Paul and Gloria fear, so they built their very own doomsday fortress, the Range Compound.
We built our house out of 9 40-foot steel shipping containers. They are designed to carry about 58,000 pounds each and be stacked 8 high. So that's an incredible 500,000 pounds of weight that these things can sustain.
Shipping containers are normally used to transport tons of commercial goods across the ocean. But recently their ability to withstand heavy abuse and their low cost, around $4,000 each, has made them a desired building material for dedicated preppers.
Essentially, I'm in a welded steel box, so I'm not worried about my container shifting in an earthquake.
When I walked up to it the first time, it was just, wow, this is really something we've done.
So back on the subject of Conex boxes. Like I said before, they have a load-bearing frame and are designed to be stacked one on top of the other. When you layer them like bricks or Legos like they did, I'm not sure how load-bearing or stable that actually is. I would wager this is more likely to fall over than a wood frame house designed to stand up to earthquakes. But if you work in the shipping industry or a related field and you can shed some light on how stable their stack is, go ahead and throw that in the comments. I'm genuinely curious.
We have a structure that totally houses us, that will totally feed us, and totally protect us.
The compound is based on the layout of a medieval castle, a square fort that encloses a safe courtyard and allows them 360 degrees of protection.
From the ground, we can see about 800 yards in every direction. From the roof, we can see about 2 miles. So we have clear fields of fire for out to 1,000 meters. So that gives us an area that we can see people, that we can see predators.
But they cannot protect the compound against everything.
So if you're not familiar, concealment is anything that masks your presence or movement. Cover is anything that will stop bullets. When you're in the offense, you want as much cover and concealment as possible to shield your advance. So all of the trees, cars, bushes, and even tall grass around their property all provide concealment, and some of them provide cover. When you're in the defense, you want clear fields of fire and observation so you can see and effectively engage anything in front of you. They don't have clear fields of fire or observation.
Some believe a continental shift could potentially move Texas to a different point on the globe, completely changing the climate.
If we shift north, winters are going to be harsher. We have to assume that we're going to have crop failures.
The prospect of a future without readily available food drives Paul and Gloria to cook not 3, but 8 meals a day, allowing them to put aside enough food each week to survive an extra 11 post-apocalyptic days.
What kind of chicken are you making?
The chimichanga base.
Oh, chimichanga base. And we're going to can that?
Yep.
The 25 pounds of chicken they preserve today has enough protein to sustain 4 people for 6 days.
We're preparing for family and friends. We're not just preparing for the 2 of us.
The average adult American should be eating a minimum of 63 grams of protein per day. A pound of chicken has 123 grams of protein. So if you're only eating the chicken for the protein, that's about half a pound of chicken per person per day. So 25 pounds would actually last 4 people 12 days if we're just talking about minimum protein intake. If we're talking about getting all of your calories from chicken though, that's another story. An average American adult who's laboring all day will need to eat about 3,000 calories per day. And a pound of chicken has 1,085 calories. So 25 pounds of chicken would only last 4 adults about 2 days. So I'm not sure where they're getting their numbers from.
Gloria's favorite Doomsday candy is made from fresh corn, dehydrated so it can last for over a decade.
Dried corn is a very good morale booster and treat food.
It's extremely sweet. Kids eat it just like candy.
8 gallons of fresh corn dehydrates into a 1-gallon jar.
So 2 weeks supply for 4 people.
And at night, the day's hunt is butchered so it can be smoked and stored.
This dough could potentially feed 22 people for a week.
All of their food is added to the pantry, a container with a 58,000-pound capacity. And right now, they're running out of space.
I would say we have in excess of 50,000 pounds of food.
Corn, we're at 700. In this room, it's our main pantry, and we have everything starting with pastas, wet canned goods, spices.
FEMA guidelines suggest that 3 days' worth of food should be stored in your home in case of a disaster.
In the wake of COVID, FEMA's come around to the conclusion that this guidance needs to be extended out to 2 weeks of supply. This is something that was discussed when I was at FEMA Academy, but I haven't seen that the published doctrine has caught up yet.
For Paul and Gloria, that is just a drop in the bucket.
We could make it for 15 years for 22 people.
But back here in the cans, they have the 20-year shelf life or more.
Right.
So this is one of the most important prepper FUD myths we absolutely must dispel. Food is not good forever, even if it's been preserved. Everything is made out of chemicals, and big complex molecules want to break down into smaller, more stable molecules. So you actually have 2 problems with long-term food storage. The first problem is rot, where bacteria comes in and eats the food before you can. Everyone is tracking that one. But the second problem is with the chemical composition of the food breaking down into something non-nutritious and possibly toxic. In all instances, on a long enough time scale, if the food doesn't rot, it will break down into compounds that have no more nutritional content than you going outside and eating a handful of dirt. In the worst case scenarios, it breaks down into something toxic that can do a number on your GI tract or potentially much worse. So with this in mind, official guidance from the USDA is that commercially canned foods are safe and nutritious to eat somewhere between 18 months and 5 years, depending on what kind of food it is. Food packed in salty or acidic solutions last longer, but can start to strip the lining of the packaging, putting toxins into the food. But home canned goods are only proven to be safe and nutritious for up to a year when canned correctly. Link in the description. So canning is a very effective technique for preserving your agricultural production from harvest to harvest, but it's not an effective long-term food storage solution. They also mention some of their food having a 20-year shelf life. And there are emergency foods that have been certified to be safe and nutritious anywhere from 15 to 25 years, depending on the manufacturer. But that's 15 to 25 years from the date of manufacture, not from the date of the emergency. Meaning, if you stockpile 15 years of food with a 20-year shelf life, you actually need to replace all of your food every 5 years, so it'll still be good for the 15 years you intend on eating it after the emergency. That's one of the key reasons being able to produce food is far more important than stockpiling food for long-term emergencies.
Food storage is like an insurance policy. We figured that our food has actually gained 400% in value since we started. So instead of investing in a 401k that just now lost $27,000 in the last 3 weeks, we have actually gained in value of 400%. So for me, that's a good investment.
So they're just flatly making up the assertion that their food appreciated 400% in value. Things are only ever as valuable as their market price. So unless the price of food on the open market has gone up 400%, your food stores have not appreciated 400% in value. And there definitely wasn't 400% inflation from the 2008 financial crisis. Furthermore, as we just discussed, most of their food is not really safely edible anymore because it's way too old. So it's mostly worthless. They would have been far better served to invest that money in their ability to produce more food moving forward.
Paul believes that a rapid continental shift would cause earthquakes that will knock out the electrical grid and rupture gas lines. So after the day's food preps are complete, he spends up to 7 hours a day working on alternative sources of energy.
When the grid goes down, I just flip a switch and we're in power. This machine on the roof, called an upwind machine, you're putting out about 650 of the 750 watts that the machine is capable of handling.
Paul has built and installed a system of small windmills and solar panels, making the compound capable of being completely independent of the national grid.
Instead of having one huge solar panel array and one huge wind generator, we've opted to spread that out. So if I have a wind generator failure, it's not going to affect my entire system.
Wind and solar are just 2 ways that Paul worked to doomsday-proof his energy. The third way is just as effective, but not quite as clean.
The methane is run by the pig poop and actually our poop too.
Methane is a highly flammable gas produced from human and animal waste.
Sewer line comes in from the house and then from the pig pens and in to the methane biodigester.
Despite its origins, methane is actually an odorless gas.
This gives us a cooking fuel that is not a wood product. In the case that the flag went up and society went to hell, you could smell wood smoke from several miles away. And I don't want to be that person that's burning that wood smoke.
Wind and solar are great ideas for your energy generation pace plan, but do bear in mind that wind turbines have a cut-in and a cut-out speed. Cut-in is how fast they need to be spinning to make electricity. So if you see that slow, lazy rotation, those turbines aren't producing anything. And the cut-out speed is so the turbine doesn't spin so fast that it damages itself. So if you're doing a DIY wind system like they have, make sure you build in a cut-out speed. As for solar panels, they require direct sunlight. So if it's cloudy or overcast, you're not going to get much of anything even during the day. Additionally, you need to regularly clean the solar panels or they're going to exponentially lose efficiency as they get dirtier. Furthermore, natural gas reclamation is a real thing and a great energy technology. However, if you have a low-tech system, it does smell exactly as bad as you think it would.
The structure is actually taking care of me. We're prepared here, we have water, we have food, we have means to grow things, we have our animals here, we have all the power requirements that we want. I can get a good night's sleep knowing that I'm protected within these walls.
Paul and Gloria have built a prepper's paradise that they believe will see them through 15 years of hell on earth. But if staying put becomes too dangerous, they also have a plan B that will take their prepping to a whole new extreme. Paul Range and his wife Gloria Haswell are convinced that the world's continental landmasses will soon shift north or south along the Earth's mantle, causing catastrophic earthquakes that will flatten our cities and crush our infrastructure.
Even if we shifted 2 or 3 degrees, it would still throw everything into chaos. There will be a series of devastating earthquakes, and I just want to be ready.
Again, that's not how any of that works. And a 3-degree shift would probably not even be noticeable for the average person. And if it was, it would probably be very slight. It would most certainly not plunge everything into chaos.
Determined to face the apocalypse with reinforcements, Paul and Gloria have picked a team of 22 friends and family who will live and fight alongside them.
We're just going to do a little target shooting and a little range safety.
Today, some of the team assembles at the range compound to hone their prepping skills and solidify their plans.
All right, make yourself ready. Load. Range is going hot. Fire when ready.
The time that I realized that I needed to prep was in Vietnam. I was there in 1975 when it fell. The chaos was just unbelievable. I just don't want to be stuck in that type of situation.
Okay, so this actually makes me sad. I forgot that that was this guy's deal. But I'll tell you, in all the research for my book, it became pretty clear that a lot of the FUD lore involved in prepping came from PTSD'd out Vietnam vets. Now, I'm not talking bad on my predecessors, but a lot of the things involved in what preppers are doing clearly comes from untreated behavioral health issues. So if you're looking at this guy and you think he and his way of life are crazy, just remember that when someone doesn't want to properly fund veterans' healthcare. Because when you don't, you get guys living in junkyard Conex forts with a lot of guns.
You may fire at will. So because of our military experience, we leaned a little heavier toward military type. We have probably 3/4 that marksman.
I was a Marine, he was Army.
Yep.
Yeah, they're both grunts. I was in Iraq. There's no infrastructure at all. It's gone down.
All right, show me the weapon.
I don't like being helpless. And now I feel good because I have a plan.
Good job, Stevie boy.
And I feel prepared.
You want to shoot the 38?
Not really.
There are some couples, there are some with kids.
Move to wherever you're comfortable at. Go to town.
That children are the future.
Excellent form.
All right, shotgun boy.
And the nice thing is that children growing up in that type of environment are not going to really know anything else.
But building, stocking, and manning a bulletproof compound is not enough for Paul and Gloria. Like many preppers, they want the complete insurance of a plan B.
Our goal, no matter what happens, except for in the case of something really extreme happening, is to actually stay in place. But if we had to, we could uproot and uproot really quickly.
Let's get going. Let's get moving.
In case the range compound is compromised, they have formulated an extensive evacuation plan, a bugout, that will take the entire team to a second location 12 hours north. And today, they will test it out.
So there are a lot of problems with this. First, we talked about how the pole shifting that's actually happening is moving Texas closer to the equator, and thus you may in fact need to move north to escape the heat. But they're saying that they thought the shift would cause Texas to move further from the equator and thus get colder. In a circumstance like that, you would need to move south, not north.
We're running a drill to make sure that we can load up in under an hour and bug out.
They will drive specially customized bug-out vehicles, second-hand school buses.
We've got a house sitting on wheels. We took all the seats but a few out. We have a way for at least 4 to 6 people to sleep within the confines of the vehicle.
Second, school bus specs vary a lot, and they aren't specific about the distance of this movement. So I'm unable to do the exact analysis, but I have some serious questions about the fuel management for such a long movement. So if everything has gone as sideways as they're talking about, no fuel will be available en route. And this movement with those 4 vehicles will take hundreds of gallons of fuel. Now, I'm assuming those blue barrels in the back of the pickup truck are water barrels, not fuel barrels, so I'm more than a little bit worried about their fuel plan. I lay out the full argument in my book for why you don't want your secondary location to be more than a 2 weeks walk from your primary location. But fuel management is one of the major reasons why. And Nat Geo points out that the FEMA guidance is that your evacuation location not be more than 1 tank of gas away. And this situation right here is a huge example why.
Paul knows from Vietnam that being able to bug out quickly could mean the difference between life and death. Timing is everything.
All right, guys, we have 55 minutes to get the bus loaded up. Let's get going. Loose cans.
Their aim today is to leave the compound with their animals, approximately 10,000 pounds of food and 310 gallons of water in under an hour.
Let's put these boxes over here.
Third, when making movement from your primary to secondary locations, you never want to be a slow, bloated, lumbering loot drop. You want to run as light, fast, quiet, and inconspicuous as you can the whole way. As such, you only want to take with you what you'll need to be able to successfully conduct that movement, and have everything you'll need for your secondary location pre-staged at your secondary location.
All right, tail gunner is going to be there. All right. Can we have the carbine, please? And we're going to lean the carbine in the corner. We believe that we can survive for about 10 years with what we're going to take with us. Come on, goats. We're bugging out. Our animals are actually trained to bug out. Come on. Come on, goats. Hurry. You're going to get left behind.
We've got water, we've got food and kitchen equipment, we've got the medical supply. We're ready to go.
All right, guys, let's get going. Go. Let's go. I'm pulling out.
The convoy of buses will travel to a pre-designated safe point 2.5 hours from the compound. From there, they will go on to their final and secret destination.
We have a specific time of the day that we are going to leave because we want to move through some areas in the dark and we want to move through some areas in the daylight. We can get to anywhere within the state without having to actually pass through a big city.
Fourth, I can't think of a scenario where you'd be forced to make a tactical withdrawal from your primary location, in which you'd have the luxury of an hour to conduct loadouts before you step off, but then only have an hour to do so. If you're forced off of your primary location, it's either going to be by something that requires you to move fast, quick, and in a hurry, like an attack from an overwhelming enemy force, or it's going to be something like your well has run dry, so your primary location is no longer tenable, but you're in no real hurry to leave. So you're either going to have only a matter of minutes, or you're going to be able to take all day. Furthermore, if you're under a time constraint for when you need to make movement, you won't be able to choose when you leave. You'll have to leave whenever you have to leave, irrespective of what visibility conditions you had planned for your movement. In both instances, this is why you only want to bring what you need to be able to make your movement. And you want all of those supplies staged so you can leave within a matter of minutes.
A school bus was actually designed to roll over and everybody inside come out intact. But when we feel that we need to pull over for the night, then we are going to actually circle the wagons. The pioneers going across this country circle their wagons for extremely valid reasons.
By replicating the pioneers and creating a square with 4 bug-out vehicles, Paul's team can spend the night in the safe central haven, defend it on all sides.
With a minimum of 4 guards, you have a defensive position.
Paul and Gloria's team have successfully bugged out to their safe point within the appointed time.
We can be really proud of the fact that that plan worked. I knew you could do it. Good job. I think that you need to be responsible for yourself and for your family, and to do anything less is a criminal act.
Well, he's not wrong there.
The experts in disaster preparedness, practical preppers, have concluded that you have multiple sources of water and extensive food stores, and that your home defense and emergency evacuation plans are excellent. Also, your energy and fuel alternatives are exceptional. You have an overall fantastic level of preparedness. However, keeping your 15-year food supply in one area is a grave risk, leaving you vulnerable to losing it all with one direct hit or one strong attack.
That's a fair assessment. That would be a good idea to diversify the food into multiple locations.
Our thought on that was that probably if our food supply was compromised by us being overrun in this position, we wouldn't really care at that point because we'd be dead. Since the original filming, we have added several things. In reference to splitting up our food storage, we have actually stored a little bit more food within our bug-out vehicles, and we do have caches along the way of our bug-out route. So that's some of the things that we've actually changed.
Caches that aren't on your own property are very risky, because if whoever owns that land finds your cache, they actually legally own everything in that cache as it was found on their property. If you have dedicated vehicles for your tactical withdrawal, staging all of the materials that will support your withdrawal in those vehicles is your best course of action, as long as those vehicles can be effectively secured. That way, you can make movement immediately. The expert assessment at the end is always nonsense. This video is already long enough that I'll leave it alone today, but in a future video where I have less to say, I'll critique their analysis and explain in depth why it's silly. As for my analysis, when it comes to their primary location, I am very concerned about their canned food making them sick if and when they actually eat it. I also have some questions about their water situation, their energy production capabilities, and their food production capabilities. As for their tactical withdrawal, I'm very concerned about them becoming a loot drop with such a big, slow footprint. I'm also very concerned about their fuel management plan. And even after they said they're staging some of their supplies for withdrawal, I still have some questions about their timeline. This show never really gets into the serious nuts and bolts of operational planning to be able to determine if anyone's plan is actually worth a damn. Things may seem like a good idea until you actually do the math and realize that you're way short of where you need to be actually be successful. But that's going to be it for me. So if you found this information useful, give me the old controlled pair on the like and subscribe buttons. And if you found this information useful enough that you want to buy me a beer about it, there's a link to my Patreon and Subscribe Star in the description. So until next time, this is James Merritt for Readiness Nation, reminding you to always be the master of your fate, the captain of your soul.